what's up, it's your boy Rawk, and I am so lonely. I need friends ASAP and pronto. I mean, come on, do I look like the kind of person who'd play Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival alone? Do I? I've tried everything to make friends. I even went to the worst place I could ever possibly imagine. Twitter. And even that didn't fucking work. You know what? That might have something to do with it. Oh ho ho, Pikmin. This underappreciated gem released on the Nintendo GameCube on June 14th, 2002 here in the UK, and was one of the most unique games on the console in my honest opinion. This game started life as a project centering around two characters, named Adam and Eve. The game was set in a prehistoric playground, where players would simply observe Adam and Eve and, as Mr. Miyamoto put it, players could pretend to be God, influencing what the pair get up to, like loving or fighting. The two could create a nest and children, only the necessities of course, and they could eventually make a village and increase the number of controllable characters, which could then be used to fight prehistoric creatures like mammoths. And as any game like this would be, it was canned. That's where we bring in Mario. Super Mario 64 happened. You want a sequel? No! Super Mario 128 was a sequel to Super Mario 64, but if you can do maths, then you got that. There's a lot to talk about with this release, the most notable thing being how it didn't. It was just a tech demo, but the technology behind the project was reworked into a whole bunch of games. But for now we're just focusing on Pikmin. You don't say. I could definitely talk more in depth about this tech demo at a later date, but for now, what the f else would I focus on? Super Mario 128 saw, you guessed it, 128 Marios running around on the screen. Quick, no thinking, guess where this tech was reused? Wii Sports Bowling! Pikmin was later revealed at E3 2001 and received near universal praise when it released about a year later. But that's irrelevant because the only opinion that matters to me is mine. So let's pop in and play the original Pikmin. Now I'm going to be playing the GameCube original here, but let it be known that this game did also release on the Wii, and I'll finally play this version when I learn the error of my ways. I mean, look at this. There's Pikmin on the spine of the box. The Wii version can't say that. We open up in space, and we're greeted to a spaceship being piloted by the one, the only, Captain Olimar. And it's not long before we see his defining character trait. Fucking everything up. Luckily for us, there's a planet directly beneath us to break our fall, and hopefully cause not death. Is that lucky though? We come crashing down into the impact site, and this is where it fully sets in. Oh my god, this game is so lovely. The peppy yet inquisitive music that graces your ears the second you land, Captain Olimar's constant commentary that is genuinely interesting and downright funny at times, and the gorgeous scenery surrounding us immediately set the tone for the adventure we're about to embark on. It's truly an absolute delight. This game released for the GameCube in 2002, and yet it still looks better than Pokemon Sword and Shield most of the time, and it plays better than Sonic Forces all of the time. 2 for the price of 1, bitches! Olimar awakens and discovers his ship in ruins. He determines that the planet's atmosphere contains poisonous oxygen, and his life support systems can sustain him for only 30 days. He deduces that the many parts of his ship are strewn about the planet, and with a solid time limit and motivation established, we set off on our journey. And immediately stumble across a beanbag that shoots arrows into the ground. Just a normal Wednesday. Olimar names this thing an onion because I don't know, it makes him cry. And if we pull this veggie out of the ground, we are introduced to the Pikmin. There's Pikmin in this game?! Their name stems from the fact that they look like Olimar's favourite brand of carrots. This guy must be really hungry and we've only been stranded for a few minutes. In a word, he's fucked. We build up our army by sending these pellets back to the onion, and we find the first part of the ship. But tell me, how the hell are we gonna get it back to the ship? By reviving slavery, of course. It is my hidden talent. The namesake of the game over here are what differentiate the gameplay of this series from any other. Pikmin is a real-time strategy game. We control an army of Pikmin, manipulating them to our will. We do this by throwing them at any and everything, and they will carry it back to either the ship or the onion. If you throw them at an enemy, they'll attack them, but you have to be careful. Given how tiny the Pikmin are, they are very vulnerable to being fucking slaughtered. You can have a maximum of 100 Pikmin in your squad at all times, but this can be both a blessing and a curse. You see, with more Pikmin comes more power. Enemies go down faster and they can carry things much more efficiently. But more Pikmin also makes you more susceptible to having massive amounts of your army eaten in one fell swoop. There are actually many ways to lose your Pikmin, such as drowning, burning, outright slaughter, and leaving them behind at the end of the day. The game works on a day-night system. The days last 13 minutes, and this is where all of the strategy of Pikmin lies. The main goal is to get as much done done as you can in any single day. All of the areas have multiple ship pods scattered among them, and it is more than possible to nab multiple in one day. Time management plays a massive role in this, and is the key to success in Pikmin. Which is why I'm not too great at Pikmin. At the end of the day, you need to make sure you have all of your Pikmin either in your army or in their onions. If there are any Pikmin left behind, well, guess what's on the menu for the local beasts tonight? If a lot of Pikmin are lost, I tend to restart the day, but if only a couple of Pikmin die, it's usually fine. I am a monster. There's no way of explaining this without sounding like a sociopath, and I have accepted that reality. Anyway, when we take the engine back to the ship, we are able to fly above the planet for the night, and we discover a new location. Olimar keeps log entries every single night, and these things are a blast to read. They really help flesh out Olimar's character, which is incredibly interesting in a game that, at a surface level, doesn't seem like a game that would have much wiggle room for that sort of character development. And I absolutely love it. I may never return home to my family. Family? What kind of family are we talking about here? Are we talking parents? Siblings? Are we talking a wife? Kids? A husband? Does he live with his grandparents? Is he adopted? Does he have aunties? Uncles? Cousins? I just really need to know the logistics of this. On day 2, we head out to the Forest of Hope, and oh my god, this music is pure bliss. Spoiler alert, Pikmin has a stellar soundtrack, but if you ask me, this is hands down the best song in the entire game. It's just so atmospheric and peaceful, it fills me with so much happiness, and really fits the area it's found in. Here in the Forest of Hope we can find 8 ship parts, and we can also find a brand new species of Pikmin! Wait, but they're literally just the same creature in different colours. They're considered to be a new species? Actually, one of them has ears. Okay, thanks. The main thing that differentiates the yellows from the reds is that they can carry bomb rocks, which can be used to break stone walls, and also killing the f*** out of everything! I personally don't tend to use the bomb rocks in battle, because it's much more beneficial to save them for when you find a bombable wall. But hey, to each their own, right? Wrong. The yellow Pikmin have a separate onion, and if the majority of Pikmin carrying an enemy or pellet back to the onions are yellow, then yellow Pikmin will sprout, and if it's red, then I'm not going to insult your intelligence. And if there's equal numbers of both colours, then the game basically tells your strategy to go f*** itself. The ship parts found in each level are another way that this game brings a lot of strategy, and it'll differentiate every single playthrough of the game. Not only are some of them not even mandatory, but in a lot of cases, it's very possible to obtain more than one in a day. You really have to evaluate whether you want to get all of the ship parts in an area before moving on to the next, figuring out if you even have the capabilities to do that right away, whether you want to go for all 30 parts or only the mandatory 25. It's a really interesting system that really forces you to manage your time well, and rethink your strategy constantly to ensure that you're being the most efficient that you possibly can. Here in the Forest of Hope we have the Eternal Fuel Dynamo, which is mandatory and is literally 2 batteries wired together. Because how the f*** would we survive without this? The Whimsical Radar, which is mandatory and actually serves a gameplay purpose. It allows you to see the locations of other ship parts on the map, as well as your Pikmin. Hooray! The Extraordinary Bolt, which is mandatory and is simply described by Olimar as extraordinary. I'll take 500! The Nova Blaster, which is optional. The marketing brochure claims that it is powerful enough to destroy literal stars. You know, I don't think I'm going to waste my time picking this one up. I should be fine. Really dodged a bullet there! The Shock Absorber, which is mandatory and makes the flights taken by the dolphin much smoother. This is bullshit! The Radiation Canopy. It's a helmet for Olimar's helmet. But what if his helmet doesn't have a helmet? The Geiger Counter, which is mandatory and is so vital to the ship's operation that Olimar doesn't know what the f*** it does. And finally, the Sagittarius, which is mandatory and was a gift given to Olimar by his son. Wait a minute. Oh my god, he f***s. This guy f***s. Breaking news! Captain Olimar from the Pikmin series has probably f***ed more than you. Also, there's a tsunami, but this is not the f***ing time! You hear that? The world's gone to shit. After collecting any 5 ship parts, our ship is able to access a new area. The Forest Navel. The Forest Navel is dark, it's dingy, and its music is funny as f***. I don't know why, but this music has always been so funny to me. It's just so out of place compared to the rest of the music. Like, let's find the odd one out. This area houses 9 ship parts, and it also houses... Fucking fine, it's a new species. The blue Pikmin are the only ones with mouths, and that obviously gives them the ability to survive in water, because what the fuck else would a mouth be for? The handy and dandy radars are going off the fucking charts, because a whole hell of a lot of the map here in the navel consists of water. That's the only thing that differentiates the blue Pikmin from the rest, which immediately makes them more useful than the stupid fucking yellow Pikmin. The layout of this area is really interesting, and very unique compared to the others. It places a lot of emphasis on verticality, which is a really interesting concept, especially when all of the Pikmin are different in terms of how high they can be thrown. The focus on height and depth adds an extra element to the gameplay, which is admittedly subtle, but really fascinating and incredibly enjoyable to play through. Having 3 types of Pikmin in different areas that utilize all of their unique characteristics also leads to some really fun gameplay sections. The ship parts found here in the navel are as follows. The number 1 Ionium Jet is a mandatory part with a fucking brilliant name, and is a jet that helps propel the ship through space. No. The Gravity Jumper, which is mandatory, and is a spring that helps the ship reach the speed of light. So that's his secret. The Automatic Gear, which is mandatory and simply makes piloting the ship easier. Yep, keep telling yourself that. The Space Float, which is optional, and is the most unique part in the game in terms of how you get it. You get it from this bastard, the Bread Bug. It has a master's degree in stealing your shit, and if it manages to get a hold of an item, you have to throw enough Pikmin at it that they can carry it back to the Onion. The Bread Bug will hold on for dear life, but when the Pikmin reach the Onion, the Bread Bug gets diagnosed with a severe case of the bonks. The Anti-Dioxin Filter, which is mandatory, and is a filter that totally doesn't pollute the atmosphere. Totally. The Libra, which is mandatory, and was a gift given to Olimar by his daughter. Wait a minute. This guy fucked twice! Twice! The Analog Computer, which is mandatory, and works with the ship's regular computer to make it smarter. And gives it emotional complexity because fuck you, you need that. The Omega Stabilizer, which is mandatory because Olimar thinks it looks cool. And finally, the Guard Satellite, which is mandatory and helps Olimar sleep at night. I really think Olimar needs to learn a certain definition. After collecting any 12 ship parts, we're able to fly to the distant spring. This is the final standard area in the game, and in all honesty, I'm incredibly conflicted on this area. Unlike the other areas in the game, a lot of the sections here feel very unnatural and video gamey. This area here is the best example. It just feels so manufactured and really doesn't fit in with the rest of the game's levels. But at the same time, the more naturalistic areas are some of the most gorgeous in the game. The overflow of water and the smaller segmented sections of land work in tandem incredibly well, and the music, while fairly subtle compared to the other area's music, is incredibly serene and is genuinely beautiful on the ears. This is the biggest area in the game by a landslide, and is home to 10 ship parts, being the Repair Type Bolt, which is mandatory and can supposedly fix anything on the ship. So couldn't it just fix the ship and let us f*** off early? The Massage Machine, which is optional, and would you believe me if I told you it allows Olimar to massage himself? You gotta be shitting me! The Interstellar Radio, which is mandatory and allows Olimar to counteract the loneliness of space by sending out an SOS signal. Man, I'm feeling really deprived of human interaction today. Help me! Yep, that'll do it. The Gluon Drive, which is mandatory and uses quark-binding metaphysical gluons, which is totally a concept that I understand. Bullshit. Yeah. The UV lamp, which is optional and is pretty much only used for Olimar's suntan. The Zirconium Rotor, which is mandatory and is something that Olimar paid way too much for. The Pilot Seat, which is mandatory and is nothing more than a padded cushion and is clearly the most vital part in the game. The Bowsprit, which is mandatory and was designed by Olimar himself, and he never fucking lets you forget that fact. The Kronos Reactor, which is mandatory and can literally warp the space-time continuum and turn it into energy. How and why is this buffoon trusted with something so powerful when he can't even do his goddamn job? And finally, the number 2 Ionium Jet, which is mandatory and is the long-awaited sequel to the number 1 Ionium Jet. God, this area can be a bitch and a half to complete, and I almost entirely attribute that to the enemies here. The Puffy Blowhog is a goddamn arsehole who blows your Pikmin into anything but safety. The Yellow Wollywog is just a more aggressive version of the regular Wollywog, and if you weren't aware, the Wollywogs are Satan incarnate, which is all sorts of fucking bullshit! And there's a secret boss in this area. Oh joy. Yeah, you wouldn't assume Pikmin would have boss fights considering the overall structure of the game. But hey, this is coming from the same guy who assumed Sonic Forces wouldn't be bad, so fuck me, I guess. There are a few bosses throughout the other areas, but most are fairly uneventful. A couple of them have ship parts inside of them, but with the exception of the beady longlegs, this is the only one that is incredibly difficult to defeat. The Smoky Prog is the boss in question, and this thing is creepy. Its model looks unfinished, and it can also kill your Pikmin by the hundreds if you aren't careful. You can encounter this boss in a certain area of the distant spring before day 15, and it's one of 3 optional secret bosses. The other 2 are in the impact site, and well, f*** me, we missed a part anyways! The second part found in the impact site is the positron generator, which is mandatory and is used to heat up Olimar's instant space noodles. How dare we forget this thing? The bosses here consist of the Gulix, which can't kill blue Pikmin and is therefore a breeze, and the Mamuta, which can't kill any Pikmin, haha! When we have all 29 parts, we unlock the final trial, and this is one of the most interesting parts of the entire game. We have to complete this puzzle, and after doing so, we are met by the Emperor Bulblax, the final boss of Pikmin, and one of the biggest enemies in the entire game. This fight isn't really the most deep thing out there. You just make him eat a bomb and then beat the shit out of it! After defeating this giant honking bastard, he spits out the final ship part, the secret safe. We did this for a fucking piggy bank! You know what? Fair enough. The credits roll to an incredibly beautiful piece of music, and this is where we learn that Pikmin does my favourite thing in all of gaming, multiple endings, which of course means f*** you, I'm not beating the game 2 more times. You get the good ending if you collect all 30 ship parts. Olimar makes his way back home, and the Pikmin are finally able to fend for themselves in the nighttime. You get the normal ending if you get all 25 mandatory parts, but not the full 30, and Olimar he just fucks off and leaves the Pikmin confused and alone. What a dick. And finally, you get the bad ending if you don't even manage to get the mandatory parts, and Olimar attempts to leave the planet in the same way he did in the normal ending, and well, the Pikmin rescue Olimar from his crash, and they take him to an onion, where he is turned into a seed and planted into the ground. I refuse to accept any reality where this isn't how the game ends. This is absolutely amazing. Wait, those cutscenes were playing in the Wii version, and they were in widescreen. F*** it, I guess I'll give it a go. Well, I certainly have some thoughts, and they're all bullshit! I am not a fan of the Wii version of Pikmin, which is probably my most controversial opinion since, Super Mario 64 is my least favourite game in the series. Yeah, that. Presentation-wise, this game is incredible. Seeing the original Pikmin in widescreen and in a slightly higher resolution really hits home how good this game looks, especially considering it was originally a GameCube game. None of the assets were updated, they were simply ran in 16:9, and the slightly higher resolution really only comes from the fact that I'm playing it on a Wii U. It's the sound and gameplay that I have a problem with though. Remember in earlier Wii games when the Wii remote would scream at you? Mario! Here we go! Yeah, let's talk about that. A lot of sounds in this game come exclusively from the Wii remote in this version, and considering these Wii remotes are almost 15 years old, this doesn't sound great. Some of the sounds are absolutely disgusting coming through the controller. It's so loud and crackly and just sounds appalling in pretty much all cases. The worst offender by far is when you try to throw a Pikmin without any in your squad. Fuck me, this is atrocious! How could my Wii remote sound this bad? Do it! How? And the gameplay. It's not for me. I know many people vastly prefer the Wii controls compared to the GameCube, which naturally comes from the pointer controls. I am not one of those people. I don't know. I could never get it to properly respond to my movements, and even when the pointer did respond, it just never felt great. It just felt stilted and awkward for me, and I don't think I could ever get used to it, which is such a shame because this is the version I want to play, but it's just not meant to be. Pikmin is one of the most unique games that Nintendo has ever released. It is the shining gem of the GameCube library, and easily solidified itself as a big, important IP for Nintendo's future consoles. The game is truly like no other. It's incredibly compelling and enjoyable to play, and the strict time limit and wealth of interesting mechanics at play make this game infinitely replayable in my opinion. There will always be a way for you to refine your strategy. Each and every time you play it, you will be better. And I can't really see this game ever getting boring for me. I genuinely love this game, and I will cherish it for years to come. Pikmin's core formula had so much potential beyond what the first game delivered. So much so that Nintendo pumped out a sequel only 2 years later. And And after the groundwork laid by this game, there was nowhere to go but up from here. Or all the way down. Yeah, guess that works too.